going on, everybody? Welcome to the X Gen Podcast, a show where four friends come together and talk about all things gaming. You can catch this show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or YouTube. If you want to be part of the show, write in your questions, comments, suggestions, really anything to xgenpod@gmail.com. I'm Evan, and I'm going to be your host today, and I'm joined by Katie, Liam, and James. Guys, how are we doing today?
Hello. Doing good. The weather in the UK has been terrific for me anyway. I've actually been wearing shorts today in March.
I'm just saying. Warm, sounds like.
It has been very, very warm, and apparently it's meant to be warm tomorrow, so bring it on.
I did sort of move the curtain across to have a look outside briefly, and it was sunny, and then I closed it again.
Yeah. See, for someone like me, you look outside, see it's sunny, realise that's a disappointment, and then look back at my computer screen. I'm very much a winter person. It sounds really depressing, but I am. I much prefer winter than summer.
Mm-hmm. Summer depresses me.
Yeah, it kind of does me
too. The idea of sun and people enjoying themselves.
See,
mine's a little bit different.
I love summer for the sense of because I'm a person who I love wearing shorts. I love letting my legs breathe. So that's when I love summer. But then obviously I feel like the last 4 to 5 years, especially in the UK, I don't know if it's been like that and hotter as the years have gone on, more so in the US, Evan, but just for the last 4 or 5 years here in the middle of summer, the prime of summer, it's been so hot, literally uncomfortable hot.
It's been Scorchio.
Yeah. It's been getting that way over here too. I remember last summer, being in the upper 90s and
global warming.
Fahrenheit, a couple degrees into the hundreds too. Yeah, right. Cool. Well, guys, the BAFTA awards just happened, which is always exciting. So that we talk about a couple things here and a couple of just mentions here. Some people who won some different things. Last of Us 2 won Best Animation. Ghost of Tsushima won Audio Achievement. Sackboy: A Big Adventure won Best British Game, which I didn't know was a category. So I like it.
I think it's because BAFTAs is British Academy, whatever.
Let's see here. Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition won Best Original Property, and Hades won Best Narrative. But the big award here, the Game of the Year, as voted for by critics, was actually Hades. So what do you guys? How do you guys feel about that?
Yeah, that did surprise me, and I'm in a good way, because Hades. Who developed Hades, by the way? Because someone just told me.
Supergiant Games.
Yeah.
So is that an indie dev?
I believe
or
so.
More so an indie dev. They do Hotline Miami. I swear, because I know the name.
Bastion, Pyre, Transistor.
Yeah, okay, those games, and people say those games are really good, Bastion and Transistor. So, but no, I've heard none. It's not really my type of game. I've had people play it, friends play it, and they say it's a really good game. It's really addicting. The art style is phenomenal. The story's really good. Voice acting quality is really good. And, all these things that indie dev has managed to pull off. And, they've won one of the biggest award ceremonies, I guess, on the award circuit. And, I mean, well done to them, really. You got all these salty people that are the big games should win it. But no, if
no,
the indie devs have put just as much work into their game, obviously, as the AAA devs.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the Oscars, same thing, right? It's, Avengers is never winning best film for the Oscars, right? It's the artsy, more, down to earth film. It's not always the one that makes the most money or has the biggest budget, right? It's what critics think had the best quality, not necessarily, what had the biggest budget, not to say The Last of Us 2, shouldn't have won, but
no, for sure.
It was a contender, for sure.
Yeah,
I mean, the game...
definitely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But, So go on.
Yeah. No, I was going to say, thinking about the games this year, I mean, Last of Us 2, Ghost, and Hades were probably the front runners, if I had to guess.
Mm. Yeah, no, I agree.
I was just super happy for it. I was just super happy for it because, it's not... I don't know if this is the first. It's very rare for an indie game to win one of these categories, let alone Game of the Year. So
Yeah,
it's very well done
definitely.
to them.
Yeah, it's always good to see the little guys get a win, right? It's not the Sony with hundreds of millions of dollars behind them that they can throw at whatever project they want to. It's a lot of love and care, and again, not to say Last of Us 2 didn't have that, but it's cool to see that. I'm trying to look at previous winners here, kind of get an idea of what it was in the past. So 2019 was Sekiro.
I think like
which
God of War was 2018.
kind of in the middle. 2018 was God of War. Or no, I'm sorry, I'm in the right category. Yeah. I'm sorry, 2019 was Outer Wilds.
Oh, that's a great game.
2018 was God of War. 2017 was What Remains of Edith Finch. That's another really small.
Oh, that's
one.
a fantastic
really good
game as
Yeah.
well.
2016 Uncharted 4. 2015 Fallout 4. 2014 Destiny.
All
So
worthy-
yeah,
all
it kind of actually
worthy
goes
winners.
back and forth. It seems like Outer Wilds was a small indie developer too, wasn't it?
It's brilliant, that game.
Never played
Really
it.
good.
Rolling these
I
off.
don't know.
You're rolling these off your tongue, and I'm like, never heard of that. then you
I
said, what
don't
remains of
know.
Edith Finch? Never heard of that.
I don't know
Oh,
what
have
it
you-
is. I
have
don't
you
know if
not
it's
played it?
because I'm not saying obviously the Brits are like more inclined to like, or the British ceremonies are more inclined to recognize indie games and whatnot. But it feels like it because it's BAFTAs. They definitely seem to be they take notice more, I guess, of the indie studios and what they can produce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the British are just better at making games. Aren't they?
Oh, I feel that's a debate waiting for another time. What say you, Evan?
I'm not going to argue with it. Honestly. I don't think any of I don't know how many of my favorite developers are even from the U.S. So I feel like a lot of the good ones are Canadian, British, French, like
Japanese.
a lot of, Japanese. Yeah, definitely. I think it's the person. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter where they're from.
No, of course
No,
not.
totally. I totally agree.
But yeah, and speaking of, also, Last of Us 2 did win, like voters' choice, or I'm not sure what they actually call a category, but Game of the Year for people just voting in. So
I
obviously it was
voted.
the popular
voted
choice.
for it.
I did.
Voted
So
for
did
it.
I, yeah.
Yeah.
I actually didn't. And that's not to go against Last of Us 2, because I absolutely loved Last of Us 2. It's just that I enjoyed Ghost of Tsushima more.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And I voted for Ghost of Tsushima. That was just
I think
such an amazing game.
the games on the list were Animal Crossing, Call of Duty, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Last of Us Part 2, and then they had Valorant on there. I don't know. I don't. No offense to the developers at Valorant, but I don't know if that's just we need another game in here.
Is that a PvP? Isn't that
That's the PvP.
game?
That's kind of like a mixture between Counter Strike and Overwatch. I want to say.
Right, okay.
I feel like it was literally popular for like 2 weeks, and then kind of disappeared. I don't know, but I mean, I guess it's still popular because it made it onto the list. But
And that was the People's Choice list.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. There's probably enough people that probably played it that voted for it, I suppose. So I don't know. I've never heard of it. So I'm some uncultured swine here. I've not heard of most of these games that you're rolling off the tongue right now.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. I was like the all the awards and everything I always think are kind of interesting. Like you kind of take them with a grain of salt, but it is cool to see like what everybody else's opinions and thoughts are and all that. So let's get into some news. Why don't we? So our first story here, so Back for Blood, which if anybody's unaware, it is a spiritual successor to Left 4 Dead, the Valve zombie shooter game, is delayed until October. So originally slated for June 22nd. So a couple months. What's that? 4 months back. So
Yeah,
how do you guys feel about this? I feel like it's probably not a big deal, but
good for Halloween.
yeah, that's true.
That's actually good for him. Maybe that's another thing I had in the back of their mind. Like, we need probably to work on this a little bit more, which I'm always for delays if it's needed. I mean, again, we've brought up Cyberpunk so many times. It was a game that definitely needed it. They didn't take it. And you look at what happened. And I feel like probably Cyberpunk is probably a warning sign for developers thinking of like, oh no, the game's okay. We can put it out now. Even when you probably think in the back of your mind, it could use a bit more time, a few more tweaks. So And it does say in this article on IGN that there will be an open beta this summer still, so you'll still kind of get to play it. It will just won't be obviously as polished as the final product hopefully will be.
Sorry.
So do you guys think that a game like if Left 4 Dead just as it is released in 2021, is that a game that like has a place right now that where it would be popular and successful and there'd be enough people, or do you think it's kind of a
for sure.
nostalgia thing that makes us look back and think
I
of it
mean,
as this amazing game?
I mean, you've only got to look on Twitch, and I think still a lot of people still stream Left 4 Dead modded.
Yeah,
because there's so many
it's really
crazy
good.
mods for Left 4 Dead still available.
Mods.
I think
Yeah,
one
I
of the
just think
craziest
it's
Left 4 Dead mods was I think there was some sort of Michael Jackson mod where I think it was is it Boomers?
Yeah, Boomers are the big zombies.
Yeah, something like that. Like they'll come in through the door and they'll just go like hee, and then just explode or something. It's just like, honestly, there are some bizarre mods for Left 4 Dead.
There are some terrifying ones. I think a friend of mine had one once, and basically, if you know what Fall Guys is, all the zombies were Fall Guys. All the
really?
Fall Guys, like jelly beans, and they would be making the noises of them like. Woo, woo,
Oh, that's amazing.
Sounds really obnoxious with how many
I think I'll have to reinstall it just for that.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I see this as a positive. Honestly, I'm excited to play this game. I love playing Left 4 Dead, when that was out and back in the day, and I'm excited for it. But at the same time, like it's not like one of those games where I'm like dying to play it. So I think it's good that they're pushing it back. I'm not super bummed or anything, and whatever makes the game better at the end of the day, I think is always the best choice.
I saw something on Twitter as well, just going on to the topic of delays and game delays and whatnot. Because obviously there were quite a few last year because of COVID. I feel like, and I personally think because I think I saw a tweet about God of War Ragnarok, and people are like, "Is it going to come out this year?" And I personally think it's probably going to get a delay, at least one. And I still think that even though, touch wood, countries, vaccinations, all that sort of stuff, COVID's kind of like people getting a grip on it. Don't want to obviously spend too long on COVID, but countries are getting a grip on it. Sorry. I still feel like there's going to be certain areas that are going to have to keep playing catch up, and I feel like gaming is definitely one of those. So I can still see delays happening this year, possibly quite a few.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if anytime anything gets delayed. I'm never like shocked at this point, especially with COVID. I always think it's, especially like you kind of mentioned Cyberpunk, like after that to like anybody that's not trying to learn from that is I don't think doing the right thing, because if you didn't see that as a game developer and think like, oh, we should definitely make sure our game is polished and not in that state when we release it, I'm sure that's kind of what they're all thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think Miyamoto said that a delayed game is eventually good, but a rushed game is forever bad.
Yep. That's a good quote.
And it's true.
It's never a bad thing to delay a game.
No.
It annoys you, but it's never a bad thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think where the issue comes in is that when people, a dev or publisher is not giving themselves enough time, and then they have to, like Cyberpunk did, just delay it like every couple months. I think delaying it's fine, but I think there is something to be said about like, well, maybe up front you should manage expectations better so that you don't have to tell people it's going to be out a year before it is, then push it back a couple of months, and you can kind of avoid that backlash altogether. But yeah, I mean, I would always prefer them to delay a game either way and have it be better.
Yeah, totally agree.
Alrighty. Yeah. Next news story here. So Sony confirms it will close PlayStation stores on PlayStation 3, Vita, and PSP this summer. So I'm not, super shocked by this, I guess. I honestly, if you would have asked me, I would have not even known if like PSP and Vita
were still around,
open. I mean, I know you can get your hands on them, but I figured like that they had closed down, servers and stuff for those, but I guess not. But
it's just what happened. Yeah, it's just what happens. I think it's just they've had their course now, because obviously the PlayStation 5's out now, so obviously the gen or whatever, all the platforms before the PlayStation 4, yeah, they're gonna slowly just cease to exist, which is sad, but they've had their time. So it's just I guess what's the word? I want to say it's just nature.
It's inevitable.
The circle
Yeah.
of life.
It's a
It is.
circle of life.
It's nature. It's the circle of life. Yeah. It
It's
is.
philosophical. But it is, you know.
It is.
Yeah,
It's inevitable.
It costs money to keep these things going, and when the juice isn't worth the squeeze anymore, it's, you know, why would they, you know, at the end of the day, it's a business, right? PlayStation and Sony, and they're not going to.
I feel like PlayStation 3 is probably the only thing. If there are, you know, I'm gonna get like a really mean email at some point with someone who's like, I still love my Vita. But I'm like, I feel like PlayStation 3 is probably really the only one I guess some people use nowadays. I wouldn't assume PSP or Vita gets much playtime at all. I don't know if, because I'm assuming if they haven't, the like production of the physical versions of like the consoles themselves, like the you know, PlayStation 3, Vita, PSP. Like if they haven't already stopped production of those, I would assume that's now possibly going to happen.
Yeah, it's
they don't make physical. I don't think they make physical copies of any PS3
Some
games
developers,
anymore,
I think, maybe. I think there might be some limited runs. Maybe I'm assuming of some games, but they're very few and far between now. But I think the biggest problem that people will have with the Vita store closing. I mean, to be honest with you, I think the one I was more surprised at was the PSP, knowing that their store was still up. I mean, that console is really old. You know, we're talking like PS2 era, and that console's still up with a store. I honestly had no idea. And that's why, out of all of those, and I guess maybe the PS3, I'm not really too bothered about their store going down. I'm probably more bothered about the Vita one because I've literally just bought a 64 gig memory card for my Vita because I wanted to fill it up. And now I've got very little. Yeah, exactly. I've got very little time to do it. But I think a lot of people's problems that they're seeing with it is that there's a lot of games on that store that are digital only and not available as a physical release. So obviously their chances now to get those games are going to be completely eradicated because there's no chance for them to go because they're not even available, and Sony don't have a plan in place to keep for you to play these legacy software on newer machines or newer hardware. So I can see where people are coming from now. I do think that a lot of people that I've been seeing on Twitter are kind of bashing Sony for the sake of bashing Sony, because as you quite rightly said, Katie, this is inevitable. This is something that happens. The Wii Virtual Console was never going to stay out forever. You know, the Wii U Virtual Console and the Wii U store was never going to stay out forever. Well, it makes no sense to keep.
That's the thing. If it's because I mean, there's always the hopes as well of a console returning. Like obviously, you look at like the mini SNES and mini PlayStation 1 or whatever. You know, those sorts of things.
Well, look at people who make Mega Drive games still. They still put out a physical release sometimes for certain Mega Drive games.
They do. Everwood, I think, was another. Everwood?
And Xenocrisis. I don't see that ever happening for the PS3, PSP.
No, unless the console was like
just dead.
I mean, they were successful, but obviously not as successful as like I guess like an N64, a Mega Drive. So you know, people like if those consoles did come back, I don't think people would be like, oh, okay. Whereas like obviously the N64, if they did like as you know, we were predicting a few shows back that we want Nintendo to do that, I think people would lose their minds. It's like, you know.
Yeah, and the PS3 is not so far away from what we've got now in terms of the way things look. And if someone said to you, they're bringing a game out on the PS3, like in 20 years' time, you go, so can I play it on this console? Well, yeah, everything's backwards compatible. Well, then I'll just play it on that. Yeah,
exactly. And the PS3 is not nostalgic either, and that's probably not going to please a lot of people, but that's just a fact. I genuinely think that. Okay, let me just retract that. That's not fact. That's an opinion. I realise how bad that sounds. Okay, but yeah, to me, the PS3 is not nostalgic. If you want to talk nostalgic, then I think you go back maybe as far as the PS2 onwards, PS2, PS1, and backwards than that. But the PS3 isn't nostalgic. This is why you will not get limited run games of PS3 games. The PSP might slightly be nostalgic now, I suppose, but the PS Vita certainly isn't nostalgic. So yeah, this is why you won't get these type of like limited run releases anymore, or even a year down the line. But I think a lot of the things that people are also mad about is the fact that, again, that Sony do not have a plan in place to allow you to play these legacy games on PlayStation 5 or PlayStation 4, because in my opinion, again, I think Sony's approach to backwards compatibility is piss poor. I think they're kind of giving a middle finger to their game preservation, to their legacy software, and they just don't care, because Jim Ryan seems to think that nobody likes playing the older games, which I don't agree with. I really don't. I think they should give people the option at very least. But
yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
well, I think they've learned it now, which is why I think it's now available on PlayStation 5. But I mean, PlayStation 4 had nothing backwards compatibility.
That's correct. And did it stop the sales? It's sold 115 million consoles. It's like one of the best-selling, or the second best-selling home console of all time.
What console's that?
The PS4.
Never heard of it.
And also, I just wanted to say PlayStation 3 was definitely, if you look at how successful PlayStation 1 was, PlayStation 2 was, PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PlayStation 3, I feel like was probably their weakest launch.
Yeah, it was.
For sure.
I mean, it was only until the very, very end of its life cycle.
Like Last of Us and Grand Theft Auto that, they
it just about one.
You wanted to play. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, speaking of the PlayStation 4, PlayStation exclusive is getting a new movie. So next, our next news story here, Ghost of Tsushima movie is in the works. So Sucker Punch Production provides first details on Sony picture film being directed by Chad Stahelski, I'm going to say. And so he is famous for directing all the John Wick movies. Ooh. Yeah, so directorially, that's about all he's done at this point. So he's directed John Wick 1, 2, and 3, and that is actually literally all he's known for. Oh yeah, no, they're fantastic films. So he's coming up movies. He's doing John Wick 4, Ghost of Tsushima. There is a new Highlander film coming out, if you guys are familiar with Highlander.
Is there really?
Which he has directed.
I did not know that.
And then other things, though, he's done. So he's been a part of some pretty solid things. So Captain America Civil War, he was the assistant director on that. A couple of the Hunger Game movies, one of the Sherlock Holmes movies, the Robert Downey Jr. ones, Birds of Prey, he was part of that one. So he's, even though John Wick are the only things he's directed, it seems like he's been a part of some other very solid solid films and TV shows, and it looks like he's a stuntman as well, which is kind of cool.
Wow.
It's I haven't played Ghost of Tsushima, so I can't get excited just yet until after I've played it. But then there's also a part of me that's like, is there a point to ever get excited? Because I feel like I would love for these video games, they want to turn into movies to be a thing. But I think we've got now to be fair, Uncharted is kind of moving along slowly now, because we've actually seen pictures of Tom Holland as Nathan Drake. Mm-hmm. But also, like The Last of Us, that was going to be a movie, but now it's a TV show. Metal Gear Solid has always been one that's been rumored, and it's just never gone anywhere. I feel like Mass Effect has also been spoken; it's never gone anywhere. So I it's always the thing of like they announce it, everyone gets excited, and then turns out 5 years down the line, nothing's still progressed.
Yeah, and a lot of them are bad.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I think if anything, we should be more concerned about the quality of the film. But
apart from Street Fighter the movie.
What do you think that was good?
No, of course I don't.
Oh no, it's not out
yet. What's his name? Rao.
Oh,
who's the guy who plays M. Bison?
It's like Raoul Jewell or something. Oh,
yeah, Raoul Jewell. Yeah,
is that right?
He had cancer throughout the whole of that
film. I know he was an absolute boss in that film, and I think he was the he was like the standout performer as well. He was like one of the best things about that movie.
It wasn't Jean-Claude Van Damme or Kylie Minogue.
No. Such terrible acting choices as well. Like you got Jean-Claude Van Damme, who's supposed to be an all-American guy or like army man, and then like what nationality is even Jean-Claude Van Damme?
He's from Belgium, I think.
Is he? Yeah, it's just unbelievable choice. It's just doomed from the start, and that's another bad film.
About Highlander, really.
Okay,
talking about Sean Connery. Playing a Spanish guy, and and you've got Christopher Lambert, who's French, playing a Scotchman, playing a Scottish guy. Sean Connery is Scottish, but he's playing a Spanish guy. It's just like what? But yeah,
you had to put the big name on the star role, though.
What's that?
But it is a thing. It is kind of like a curse, I think, that follows video game. Once you hear movie adaptation of so and so video game. Everyone's like, ooh, okay. Like unless they see actual like footage and they feel like I don't know. I just feel like video game movies seem to have a bad rep. They have quite a curse on them because most of them have been bad. It's
Yeah. They should be banned. You shouldn't be allowed to.
No, see, no, I feel like that's hard. It's hard because I saw the Tomb Raider movie 2 years ago with Alicia Vikander, and that was okay. I was
going to say I quite enjoyed that. Yeah.
No, I've made the rules. I think as soon as you start thinking about making a computer game, I think a big hand should come down, slap you on the back of the head, and say, "Stop it."
I think it's a whole other discussion for another episode. But I mean, there are a few adaptations that I actually really enjoy.
I always bring up Wreck-It Ralph, even though it's technically not a video game. But
I wouldn't class that.
So I think that, and this is based off of absolutely no facts or any sort of statistics. It's all just an opinion. But I genuinely feel like we're rounding the corner on video game movies being like these terrible like things that either get canceled or are just come out and they're like awful. Just because of how much more mainstream video games have become, especially in the last especially in the last 5 years. That I think that before, you take a video game or a movie based on a video game, you pitch it to a movie studio and they'd laugh you out of the room because, video games didn't have that big audience or, they didn't have that mainstream appeal, which I think isn't true anymore. So I think you'll start to see video game movies with bigger budgets put behind them and more resources and like, more well-known directors. And I think it's just going to take that one video game movie that's very good for everybody to be like,
to kind of push everybody else.
That's a good formula
also,
for this. And
why do you need it though? Why do you need a film? Why do you need a film made from a video game when a video game is almost like a film nowadays?
I don't think you need one. I just think it's going to happen because Hollywood likes money, so they'll go wherever they can make money. So if we're going to have them, I just hope they're good. You know what I mean? I don't think it's something that's ever not going to be a thing, unfortunately.
But did you read what Tom Holland actually wrote about Uncharted? He actually said he's not that pleased with it.
No, that was just one of his scenes. That article was taken well out of context.
Oh, was it really? Okay.
Yeah, it was just something he did on one of his scenes that he said he wasn't happy with and wish he could probably do better. That was all.
Because he's got a bit of a thing for completely giving stuff away.
I love watching Tom Holland spoilers.
Like literally, I feel like throughout the whole advertising like publicity circuit for Endgame, he had someone with him so they could talk over him, and I think one of them was Benedict Cumberbatch, where he would start talking, Benedict Cumberbatch would be like bleh, 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 like stop talking.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But then also streaming services are a thing as well. Streaming services are definitely a lot more viable source of income. They got more eyes on them now, especially with Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Apple have got their own one now. It's there's a streaming service everywhere in every corner of like the fucking internet right now. So I feel like that could also be another way for them to maybe don't release it on the big screen, maybe see how it does on a streaming service, then maybe then put it on the big screen, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, look at things like The Witcher, the TV show. I feel like you also like can see video games be adapted into, it doesn't have to be like the big budget like Hollywood movie, in theaters. It can be something like Netflix, gets the rights or something, and they make like a TV show, which I think personally usually works out better for most things because you have more time to tell a story and tell more plot and everything.
Yeah. And I agree with that, but I'd also say that I don't mind a video game being adapted to a movie so long as it makes sense. If you're going to adapt a video game such as Twisted Metal into a film, then that doesn't really make sense to me. But how are you going to pull that one off? It's a car combat game.
Be like Saw, but with cars.
Yeah, it's bizarre. And like when they made a Need for Speed movie, you just think, well, now you just trying to piss on Fast and Furious, and it turns out that was actually a really bad film and it was a really bad idea. If you're going to do it, then do it to a game that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so it's like making a movie for Tetris, right?
Exactly. Yeah,
that's kind of what I mean. I think we'll start to see less of these like cash grab, like I'm just going to put the name Need for Speed and like make it a racing movie, and it has nothing to do with Need for Speed or the video game series, but we're just going to slap the logo on there or the title so that people go see it that like Need for Speed, which I think is what they did in the past, just because they knew people would go see it, and they didn't think that, you know, a video game movie was worth putting like the time and effort into.
I don't know how they. Well, I mean, again, it was another cash grab, that House of the Dead that you mentioned, James. But it was the worst part of that was the fact that it was made by, what was his name, Yui Ball, who's made some of the worst video game adaptation movies in the world.
Yeah. They put like screen grabs of the game in it.
They did. Yeah, I remember. Because it's just in case you don't realise that this scene, if you don't recognise where they're supposed to be, let's just put a quick screen grab of where they are in the game, so you can compare as, you know, what it should actually, what it is you're looking at. It's such a bad idea for a movie. Who does that? I mean, it's almost as cheesy as Mortal Kombat the movies. When they introduced Reptile, they had the actual Mortal Kombat 2 Steve Ritchie voice announcer say the name Reptile.
Reptile.
Yeah, Reptile, and you just think. Yeah, okay. I knew that was Reptile anyway, but okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there's Reptile.
Yeah, it's Reptile. You said it's Reptile. It must be Reptile. It's Reptile.
Alrighty. Well, I like it. I'm excited to see what happens with this and see the casting and stuff.
Yeah, me too, actually. I think it's a good fit. I think it's a good fit for the director.
Yeah, I have hopes it'll turn out well. I'm going to stay positive. But all right, we'll probably won't hear about that for a while though. So let's move on to our topic for today's show, which is we're going to talk about if you could pick one video game or video game franchise and just completely wipe it from your brain and play it again for the first time, what would it be? James, I'm really curious to see what you have to say. So let's start with you.
Okay, are we talking about a series or just one game?
Whichever one you pick to go with, that's fine. So if it's
I'm going to say the Wolfenstein series. The Wolfenstein series for me is just such. I'm edging more towards the later side of the Wolfenstein games. So I'm talking about Old Blood and New Order and Wolfenstein 2. They were fantastic. They were just. I really, really enjoyed them. They were loads of fun, and if I could forget them and replay them again, I would do it again in a heartbeat, because it was just such a fun ride, and it's just amazing. I think that would be my pick, and yeah, I mean the old games were absolutely fantastic, but for me, I know them kind of not as much as in and out as the newer ones, because they're the ones that I kind of played to death, and if someone could sort of pop a little pill in the middle of my head and remove that from my head, I'd definitely go back and play them again. But then part of me thinks, this is the problem. If I did forget that those games exist, would it be a game that I would play now? Would it be a game that I'd pick up and go, I really enjoy that? Because I'm trying to work out how I managed to play them. I've always been a fan of Wolfenstein, so it probably would be something that I'd pick up again and play. But if it was a game that I really enjoyed that I'd played, say, by accident, I'm wondering if I did take the pill. I don't know why it's a pill now. I don't know why. I don't know if I'd have taken that pill, would I then play it again? But no, Wolfenstein is the short answer. Any questions?
No, I mean I've never played a Wolfenstein game, so I didn't realise they were that good, to be honest. Why not? I think because when Return to Wolfenstein, I'm assuming that's where you're starting from. When you said the later games, are you starting from Return to Castle Wolfenstein?
Yeah, we can start from Return to Wolfenstein.
I think when that was first released, it was around the Xbox OG era.
Yeah, it came out on PC. I think it hit Xbox OG in the later life of the Xbox.
Okay, so I don't think I would have had a powerful enough PC to have played it anyway back then. And I did have an original Xbox, but I was in the phase back then that I would play a game and my attention span would be very small, and I'd probably play about an hour of it or 2 hours of it and then probably never play it again. And I think Wolfenstein maybe, although I was very aware of it, it just maybe fell under the umbrella of, okay, it's just another game. It looks good, but yeah, I mean, I could be playing Tony Hawk's 3.
Yeah, I will definitely with Return to Castle Wolfenstein. I mean, that's a game. It's a good game, but the narrative isn't there as much as the newer ones. The newer games have a very, very strong narrative and story that you kind of do just get hooked straight into. I mean, I think you'd really enjoy the newer Wolfenstein games. I do.
I think you're right.
They have a great story,
I
and
mean,
they're so action packed, and they're challenging as well. I mean, they're quite hard. So.
See, that might put me off. It depends on whether or not you can change the difficulty. I mean, I had to change the difficulty on Resident Evil 3.
Yeah. There's 4 or 5 difficulties. I think the top one is the hardest mode. Plus, if you die, you have to start again from the beginning with no saves.
Ooh,
so it's,
like
you
a
only, it's a
permadeath.
one shot. Yeah, it's called Mein Leben mode, which I think stands for my life or something.
Okay.
My love or something. Yeah, and that's you can play that mode throughout the whole of them. But yeah, I mean, I've never been able to do it with Wolfenstein 2 or the New Order, but Old Blood, I know Old Blood like the back of my hand because I speed run it quite a lot. And I mean, if you get to like 3/4 of the game and you die, that's it. It's game over.
I was going to frustrate the life out of me.
I was going to ask then, James. Are you? I'm assuming you are, but are you like as much of a fan as the? I'm trying to word it right. I'll start again. Are you a fan of the newer games just as much as you are a fan of the older games?
No, I'm probably more of a fan of the newer games, if I'm being totally honest. Just because... Why? I
mean, I haven't played the newer ones anyway, but all I've seen is crazy robot dogs.
Yeah, I mean, they just got something over the old games. They really do. I find the older games a little bit boring, especially Wolfenstein 3D. It's a great game, don't get me wrong, but it can become very monotonous and very boring. And the good thing about Old Blood is you can play them levels in it. If there's like a special mode where if you find like a certain thing in each level, you can go and play a level of the original game or one of the episodes. And so you kind of get the best of both worlds. But honestly, it's just the story and the collectibles as well. There's so many things to collect and so many things that you can unlock, different concept art. It just has this massive replayability. And I'd love to play the game again, but have no prior knowledge to it. It annoys me that I know where all the enemies are and that I know that if I wait here for like a certain amount of time, he's going to pop his head out. I can hit him and then carry on with the level, because that game now has become solely about the Old Blood. That game's solely become about speed running for me and how quick I can do it, and that's how I kind of have keep that as a part of a replayability now. But because I've unlocked most things in most of the games, it doesn't really pose a challenge anymore, and I think that's what I'm missing. I would play Youngblood, but I can't. It's just unbearably bad. I can't do it. I just can't play that game. So, but those 3 there, if I had the choice, I would Wolfenstein, almost definitely.
My approach to video games now are a lot different. So I think Wolfenstein is a series I do want to play. So I definitely will give them a go at some stage.
You should. Definitely. I mean, you've got another 70 years on Earth. I mean, I'm sure you got a bit of time to.
70 years on Earth. You think I'm going
a long time?
You think I'm going to live till I'm like 106?
Science is getting. I
don't want to live till I'm 106.
Why?
I don't want to be an old man shitting my pants whilst playing a game.
What, you'd rather be dead and not play any games?
Yeah. I mean, I can play games in my new life when I'm young again.
In my new life. I will say I played the was it New Blood? Was that the first of the reboot, the newest reboot?
You've got Old Blood.
Young Blood?
Well, it goes in this order, but they didn't necessarily come out in this order. It goes it goes Old Blood, New Order, the New Colossus. Is it called the New Colossus? Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then Young Blood.
Okay. Then it was the New Order. I played the New Order, and it was very fun. So, Liam, if that helps you want to play it
That's the first
more.
one that came out.
Yeah. That's the only one of those ones I played. It was very good. Alrighty. Wolfenstein, I like it. Katie, what are you thinking?
I wanted to go with first a game, probably one of the first like proper big, like start that again. I'm gonna go with a game that has literally introduced me to the fact that games have these big, vast, open worlds to explore with like loads of people in it, NPCs, things to do, all that stuff, and that is Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Because up until that point, I played like I grew up on like Nintendo games, and they're a lot of fun, like platforming, and they were some of the greatest games of my childhood. But then when I realized that hey, there are these games with these massive open worlds, and you can do pretty much anything. There's so much for you to do, customization. You know, in Oblivion, in regards to Oblivion, you know, riding a horse around, you know, the land, all that sort of stuff. It was great. I absolutely loved it. And Oblivion just had so many good moments, so many well-written quests. The best one being a certain Dark Brotherhood mystery murder quest for people who are listening, people who are fans of Oblivion. But no, yeah, Elder Scrolls Oblivion for sure. It's my favorite Elder Scrolls game. It's probably my favorite Bethesda game, and it's in my top 5 games of all time. So yeah, definitely Oblivion.
Oblivion was my first experience with, I believe, a Bethesda and an Elder Scrolls game, and yeah, I absolutely loved Oblivion too.
That was almost the game I picked for this topic as well. I absolutely love that game. I feel like everything you said like hit the nail on the head for me. Like,
yeah,
it was like the first like really big open world, you know, game I played that was, you know, you could really just go anywhere, you know, go into every building, interact with every person, you know, and just I feel like it like set a lot of like groundwork, or you know, it was kind of one of those first really big open world games, and I think it kind of started that trend that's still going on today of, you know, how big can you make an open world, and I know there were games before that had massive open worlds too, but I feel like it's just a great game. I know it was landing on it, but I really love that game.
No, it just had, and the world they made was so alive. Like one of the best moments in that game is literally the beginning when, you know, you've done your character customization, you go through the sewers, all the stuff that happens with the Emperor happens, and you finally get outside and you literally just get that quest pop up, and you can just, the music has gone like, because Oblivion soundtrack's one of my favorites. And literally just you hear that really soothing, serene music, and then once the quest pop-up goes away, you look around and literally I feel like the weather every time you go outside is like clear blue skies, all the green trees, all the like really beautiful looking water, and you look at it all, like you take it all in, and you're like, I can, like, there's no, obviously there is invisible walls, you do reach an end of the world or the land or whatever, but for the most part, there's actually nothing stopping you from going in, like said, you know, in one direction, you know?
Yeah. Again, when you play a game like that, I mean, I first played that on the Xbox 360. I don't think I'd ever played a game with such a huge open world as well. So you're kind of blown away by just how large the world actually is.
And it's still quite big today at some standards. I mean, yes, you've got your Witcher 3, you got your Red Dead 2, you got your Assassin's Creed Odysseys, but it's still pretty big, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was just about to say the exact same thing. I said, you know, I was going to say, like, obviously, you know, you got your Skyrim now, which is obviously a bigger world, and you know, even I believe Fallout's are probably bigger, but it's still a huge world, and it takes many hours to explore. I mean, I must have pumped I can't even tell you how many hours I pumped into that game, but yeah, I spent a lot of time on it and absolutely loved it. Same as you.
You ever played Oblivion, James?
I was just thinking how much of Oblivion that I've played, and I was just visualizing what you were saying of the when you first get out of the caves at the start after I don't want to give too much away.
I
Well,
mean,
it's
it doesn't.
supposed
I
to
think it's a
start, so
pretty
it
old
doesn't really
game.
matter, does it? After the
The Emperor gets killed.
that's right, yeah. And
Patrick Stewart.
and
Patrick Stewart.
you first make your way out, yeah. And I'm just thinking of how green and blue those skies were. I think the first thing I did was I went to this like house and stole a horse.
Yeah,
And
that's the thing. That's one of my points. Sorry, James, for interrupting. But that's one of my points. You know, you can do anything, even if it's not necessarily a good thing, but you can do it.
Yeah, I'd gone to a scribe's place. It was part of one of the missions, and I'm sure it said take a horse, but I don't think it did. But then when you do take a horse, you get like people come after you or something.
You took the wrong
get, like,
horse.
Yeah. But I remember the first time that I actually went into. Is it you go into Oblivion, don't you?
Yeah, through the gates. Yep.
And that first time of seeing those like creatures, and like because at the time I was like, what the hell is going on? I don't even know what's like. How did I get here? And
I walked through a orange larvae portal.
It was it's one of them games that I should probably revisit because I've never completed it. It's probably like what you said, Liam, a while back, like a few years ago when that game would have come out. I was sounds awful, but I was heavily into drinking with my mates and going out and having a really, really good time. And it probably would have been one of those games that I played for a couple of hours and then didn't touch again because, you know, going out and doing my own thing in the evenings and that. I probably didn't put as much effort into computer gaming as I do now. So it's probably a game that I should definitely revisit. It's kind of bittersweet because I'm almost doing the thing that you want to do, Katie, and I'm going into it with not having any real memory of it at all.
Mm-hmm. That's it. That's great. It is. It's so good, and it's like it came out in 2006, I believe. 2006. Right. And yeah, 2006, I think is when it came out, and it's still like I still speak to people who still go back and play it today, and some people like you can mod it. Like I've modded it to hell before, and it's really still a lot of fun. But there's people I know that still play it vanilla, and they like it's still just so much fun. It's and it's probably Bethesda's prettiest game in my opinion. Even though it's obviously got the older textures, the blocky kind of faces with the character models, it's still a really beautiful game. In some regards,
it was a huge jump too from playing Morrowind, which was this like dark, you know, always stormy, like greens everywhere, like, and then like Oblivion's this like very like not generic but classic, I guess, like fantasy, like rolling hills, blue skies. Like it was kind of I mean, I'm sure at the time, looking back now, it's hard to kind of think of it, but at the time it was probably, I mean, definitely was like a, you know, graphically very impressive game. And then it was also this like beautiful world, and
yeah, definitely
like a lot of good characters too. I remember from that game, there were just so many like either just like really odd like
the adoring fan,
the adoring fan, and they're also like I mean I really liked like Martin and like some of the main characters of the game were just like interesting, like kind of cool characters to talk to. And
it was also, I feel like, Bethesda's first game that they made that they brought in quite well-known actors to play their characters, which was Patrick Sean Bean, Patrick Stewart. It's just it's crazy.
And I think it wasn't it Oblivion that had that one woman who reads her line and then makes a mistake and says, "Oh, let me do that again," and then she reads the line again. Yeah,
it's actually in the game. It's so funny.
Todd Howard voices a character in that game too, and in Oblivion, it's like really bad voice acting.
Oh, didn't know that.
I love that. That is one of the best little video game Easter eggs ever. You just hear her say online, she's like, "Oh, I got that wrong. Let me do it again." And then they get. I felt like it was probably a mistake to leave it in there, but it's just so funny.
Alrighty, Oblivion. And Liam, what about you?
So I'm glad. After reading some of the comments, actually, I'm quite glad that it just goes to show that this game had such a huge impact on quite a number of people that it also happened to be their picks as well as mine. And that game is actually Red Dead Redemption 2.
I haven't played that yet. I'm playing that this year, but I haven't played it yet.
And this is why I'm going to be very careful with what I say. I'll try and be so careful. but the game story and its protagonist, you just connect with and just fall in love with him. He's just brilliant, he's just such a great guy. And
Arthur Morgan.
the it's just not just that, but as you know, Rockstar they put a lot of work into their small attention to detail. And, with things like, even in games like Grand Theft Auto, they have all these minor little details that you can see, which just brings the game world to life. It's the same in Red Dead Redemption 2. Things as small as, if you're kind of riding through a town it's a very muddy kind of path or a very muddy town. If it's raining and you're riding a horse, or even if you're just walking in this muddy path, your character will create a footprint, but then that footprint will have a puddle in it. It's just minor little detail like that just brings this world to life. And every bit of the story, all the side quests, just every part of that game was just, you just feel so immersed in it, and you really connect with not just Arthur, but Arthur's friends, and everyone that you meet along the journey, and travel the path to the end game. I mean, I really can't say what I want to say, because Katie, I mean, again, as you say, when you say that, you're
I'm gonna be playing it at some point this year.
Yeah, you've never played it, and as James said with Oblivion, it's kind of bittersweet for you, Katie, because obviously you've played Oblivion, you want to play it again, and James is going to experience that for the first time. For me, it's opposite for me. So it's bittersweet for me, because you're going to be playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for the first time, and I wish I was kind of doing it again too. And I just oh, you're playing it of course, yeah, James, you're playing it for the first time as well, aren't you? Yeah. I envy you too so
Really?
much. Yeah. I mean, I know, James, I know you said that at the minute it feels more like a movie.
It's just tedious.
Yeah. But then there are a lot of games that are tedious to start with. And Death Stranding was one of them. I mean, that game was really tedious. And I thought, this game was nothing more than a walking simulator. But then it kind of got like to Act 2, I think it was, something like that. And it just, the game just opened up, and you're just like, wow, this is almost a completely different game. This is amazing. It was action packed. You need to give Red Dead Redemption 2 a chance.
I mean, I'm on chapter 2. I'm on chapter 2.
Oh wow,
so
yeah, okay.
Probably not. I'm not that. How far? I'm not. I'm like 3% of the story, I think. So I'm not that far in, I guess. But yeah. I'll carry on with it. I will carry on with it. You are right about it being visually stunning, because it is, and I've not played a game where I've actually stood back and gone, wow, because
I've heard people say it looks absolutely gorgeous.
I'm not going to throw a spoiler in, but there is a part in the game where you have a fight. I mean, you're going to have a fight at some point, but you have a fight in the middle of like a town. And just the effects of the environment on, like what you said about the rain and the mud, and just how that looks on you as a character after the fight, it's just amazing. And you have got to take your hat off and go, that the detail in this is absolutely just second to none, because it's a beautifully stunning game. The voice acting is just on point. Everything about the game visually and audio, what's the word I'm looking for? Like
audio design.
Yeah, just the audio. It's just fantastic, and it is. It's beautiful. It's just the thing is with me is it feels more like I'm constantly going into a cutscene, and there's very little of. I mean, I destroyed a whole town just because I got a little bit bored, and then I sort of died, and then went back and I'm okay now, and went back to the story. But that kind of puts some of the fun in it, in the fact that you can just do what you want to do. If you want to shoot someone in the face, you're more than welcome to. And that's what I quite like about it. But definitely give it some more time.
Yeah, you definitely should. I really recommend you don't. Please don't give up on it. I mean,
no.
Even when you were saying about the voice acting being so good, I mean, again, I cannot tell you any particular scenes, but you can just feel like the voice acting is just so good. You can just feel how they're feeling just by hearing it in their voice, and it really was an amazing performance by I don't know the guy who does Arthur Morgan's voice. I don't know his name, but such a good performance. And
see, I thought it sounded like he sounds a lot like the guy who's in True Grit. What's his name?
Jeff
He's a
Bridges?
really it sounds like he does sound like Jeff Bridges.
Or John Wayne.
Yeah, Jeff Bridges. No, yeah, the new one. Sorry,
John
Jeff
Wayne,
Bridges.
Jeff
Yeah,
Bridges,
not John Wayne from the old one. So who plays Arthur Morgan? Portrayed by a guy called Roger Clark.
Yeah,
I
I think
don't
he's
know
just
whether
like a
that's
video game voice actor. I don't think he's like a.
He hasn't been in. I was just looking. He hasn't been in very much in terms of filmography.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I have played obviously the first Red Dead. I know this is a prequel. It's set before, but I loved Red Dead 1. It still holds a place very high up in my list of like best games I've ever played. It's got probably one of the best endings I think in a video game. A very brave ending, which obviously I won't play, but still, it's But no, I love Red Dead 1, so I'm fairly sure, and I've seen bits of Red Dead 2. Nothing too big to spoil me, and people have got nothing but praise really about this game. So I'm probably going to enjoy it when I get around to it.
I really wish I could explain better how I feel about that game. It really is an amazing game. I really wish I could play it for the first time again, because I know that playing it for a second time just won't have the same impact to me, just regardless of how brilliant the game actually is and how beautiful the world is when you've done it once. I don't have a desire to go back and do it again, because I'm not really one to going back and playing such a huge game more than once. That's just not really, my attention will now go on elsewhere. But yeah, I mean, I wish I could play it for the first time again, because it is just that good.
Yeah, this was actually again another game that I almost picked for this this topic too, along with Oblivion. And I mean everything that you said, and James, kind of things that you had talked about too, what you played so far, exactly. Like it's like the level of like technical, like I mean it's a masterpiece. I mean, when you think about a video game being a masterpiece, like Red Dead Redemption 2 is like what I would show somebody if they were like, what's like the craziest thing gaming can do right now. I mean, it's just the level of like detail in everything. I mean, and wasn't it Red Dead Redemption 2 where people were in like screenshot mode and they were zooming in on people's eyes, and even people's eyes have like a real reflection of like what is in front of them. Like it's that
crazy
level of detail. And the reason I ended up picking it, I have, some like issues with the game, but I mean, what you were talking about particularly, there are just some like moments, especially like some of them are when you're in combat, some of them are not, but where the game is just like so like breathtakingly, immersive and like good looking, like when you're having a firefight in a town and things are exploding around you from like the bullets like chomping off pieces of wood, and it looks like something that's straight out of a movie, and the air is slowly filling up with all the gun smoke, and you hear people like screaming left and right like at each other, and it just like feels like, it doesn't feel like a video game. Like it does kind of almost feel like you're watching a scene from a movie, with how like realistic everything seems and how like real all the characters are. And there are points where almost like watching Game of Thrones through before season 7 and 8, but when you were like you don't want, you never know, is a character gonna die, like what's gonna happen, like when you go into all these different scenes, and like you truly like care about these characters, like you don't want something bad to happen to them. And anytime something does, you're like gutted because you really like cared about this character. And there were like so many just like great moments in that game of riding your horse from one town to the other, and just like the vistas, and like all like the wild horses roaming around, and like you can come across like animal, like a cougar actually like hunting a deer. Like there are just so many like wild things that they put time and attention into in this game, that it's like, I don't know, it's just like jaw dropping. But yeah, that's a game I almost would go back and play again, because I mean it is kind of what James was saying, like slow. It feels like a movie, and it takes time to like do anything, because it is such a large world, and you move it like such like a slow pace, whether you're walking or riding your horse, where like getting from point A to point B sometimes takes a while, but that's almost like part of the joy of the game is like seeing this world they created and all the detail and everything.
Completely agree. Couldn't have said that better myself.
Alrighty.
Can I?
Oh, James, go ahead. No, go ahead, James.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Katie, whatever you do, don't Google Arthur Morgan.
You might get some spoilers.
Yeah. I wish I hadn't have done, because I have those.
I mean, I was good. I was good and did because I already have. I
Yeah.
already did to see who voiced him, but I didn't see anything. So
okay, good.
It's okay. It's all good.
All right.
Me
Okay,
and
'cause I've
I
just
just know
ruined
he
it
was
for
voiced by
myself.
Roger Clark. That's all I know.
My girlfriend and I have been watching through the MCU movies. Her for the first time. I've seen them all before, but she was like Googling actors and actresses from it, and she was like, I can't remember what movie we were watching, but she Googled a specific like character, and she was like, "Oh no!" And I was like, "What?" I just got this totally what happens to this character ruined for me, and I was like, "Yeah," I was like, "You can't." It's like people don't really respect spoilers on the internet. You kind of gotta keep your distance.
Yeah, I'm bringing.
Ruined.
I'm watching Game of Thrones again with a friend, like who hasn't seen it before, and yeah, I'm like, just stay away from the internet while we watch it, please.
Yeah, definitely. If you haven't already heard everything about it, yeah.
Oh, that must be amazing to sit and watch someone watching that, because
yeah.
Game of Thrones was fantastic up until like
the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, but to watch someone's like reactions to because Game of Thrones is up until obviously the last few seasons, it's probably got to be one of the best things I've ever seen on TV.
Yeah, I agree.
Oh yeah.
And just every week it was one of those things that I just couldn't wait to watch. And watching someone else in have that same with the MCU thing, with what you were saying with your girlfriend, watching someone have those emotions towards those characters again is amazing. It's almost like what we're talking about now, but living it through someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. What about you, Evan?
Sorry, give me 1 second. I'm gonna shut my window real quick.
Edit this part out. Edit this part out.
Getting home from work and starting to mow their lawns. Apparently, it's getting a bit noisy.
Even though I know James is going to edit it out, but I'm like, edit this part out.
Just leave that part in.
You're editing this one, Katie.
All right. So I picked. I probably put a little too much thought into this, but I originally was kind of thinking like, okay, what are like some of my like favorite video games of all time? Like that's obviously the answer is going to be in there, right? But kind of when I thought about them, a lot of those games are games I played when I was a lot younger. And thinking about them, I'm like, if I had no memory of this game, never played it, and I played it again today, would I enjoy it as much as I did the first time I played it? And would I have that like same like special, you lose that special memory of it, right? And I know this is all probably, again, thinking way too much detail about it, but so I landed on a game that I absolutely adored like the first time I played it, and then it kind of lost its luster for me trying to play, and it's a game that's meant to be played multiple times, or people generally do. And the more I played it, the less I enjoy it, to the point where I don't really like this game at all anymore. But if I wish I could go back and experience it that first time, because the first time was fantastic, and that's Skyrim, actually. So another Elder Scrolls game. So I remember, Skyrim coming out and the trailer, and I don't know if you guys remember the Skyrim trailer, not the live action one, but that first E3 one at the reveal.
It's a guy with like the helmet and the dragon, or
that's the live action one. So this
that's the live action one. Okay.
Yeah, the non-live action one. Anyway, it's like probably like one of the hypest moments of my life, and I was so excited for this game. I loved Oblivion and played Morrowind, and me and all my friends were so excited. We and at the time I was like 15, but we watched the trailer over and over again, and it was just like, I mean, unbelievably excited. Probably too excited to the point where nothing could probably live up to that expectation, but and then going at midnight to get the game, and bringing it home and playing it. And I remember just like the first playthrough of discovering everything for the first time, and the first time you fight a dragon, like the first time going through all the caves for the first time. There are some like really fun quests that you do, and just I'm sure you guys have all played Skyrim or at least have some sort of experience with it, but
Mhm.
just a really, I think, well-made game that was, or well made to Bethesda standards. There's still bugs and stuff, but but the first time you climb the mountain and go see the graveyards, there's so many things that are so great the first time you do them, and then it just kind of lost its shine, and it's a game that I don't really even enjoy to this day, like going back and really replaying as much as I did love the game the first time I played it. So I just kind of wish I could play it and then be able to do that all for the first time and kind of have that look at it with that fresh set of eyes and be able to discover all those things again for the first time.
Like the attention to detail of Skyrim was I feel like was pretty good. As you said, like when you go up to like the highest mountain in the game, which is High Frothgar with the greybeards, and obviously if you catch the weather at the right time and it's like a clear day or whatever, and you look down, you can actually see like in the distance where each like city or village is, which I really I like that attention to detail, like just being able to see the being actually able to see each like individual settlement and whatever from like top of the mountain. I just loved doing that. Absolutely loved doing that.
I mean, I really enjoyed Skyrim too, although when I completed Skyrim, I did it in like sections. So I probably played like 10 hours over a period of time, then dropped it for about 4 to 5 months, did about another 5-10 hours in a period of time, then dropped it for about another 6 months or something, then came back to it eventually and just completed it. But as much as I did enjoy it eventually, it just didn't have the same impact as Oblivion did. Yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much as I did Oblivion. Like, Oblivion was so new to me, being able to join all these different like guilds, I guess. Is it guilds? Like, like the Thieves Guild and, etc. And, that kind of freedom was really kind of brand new. Although I was kind of already exposed to kind of like free roam games, just not to that extent. And Oblivion just really kind of opened my eyes to that. Whereas, in Skyrim, you had seen it all before. And in terms of visuals, I mean, I don't know. It just didn't seem like a massive leap,
I feel Skyrim more shined in its exploration. Like with Oblivion, like the quest writing I felt was better. The setting I much more preferred. The main quest even, because when it comes to obviously Bethesda games, the main quest sometimes is the least interesting thing to do.
Yep.
But Oblivion was okay. Skyrim's was okay. But in Oblivion specifically, outside of like quests and stuff, like if you were just exploring the land, there is stuff to obviously explore. There's caves and ruins to explore, but not as many things as you can go and explore in Skyrim. Like there's places littered all over Skyrim to explore and check out.
There are a lot, yeah.
Yeah,
and I think that's why it took me so long as well, because I love to explore in games.
Yeah, it just doesn't have that same. There are games like Oblivion, like the Mass Effect games, like Code, like some of those games that are like my top 5, top 10 of all time, where I can just re-experience the same quests, the same stories, and I know exactly what's going to happen, but it's still like fun and like exciting, and I enjoy doing it. I like look forward to it, and Skyrim just like doesn't have that. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just because it is kind of like I'd already been there, done that with Oblivion, and kind of none of it was like new, as far as like how Bethesda build the game and quests and stuff, but it was everything that like that first time you did it, it was all so like cool and new and interesting and exciting, and I enjoyed the quest and I enjoyed the story and like the characters, and then it's just like the next time you did it, you're like, okay, yeah, whatever, and you're just kind of trying to like rush through parts of it and don't really want to go explore everything, and I don't know what it, I don't know, I can't really put my finger on it, but it is a game
I get what you mean.
It the first time, it was this like like I think like I thought the first time I played it, I was like, oh, this is gonna be forever one of my favorite games, but it just doesn't. And in an ideal world, I'd love to be able to like erase it from my mind and then get like the special edition and like put all like a bunch of great mods on it and like mod like the magic system and a few other things to kind of make it what kind of reach its potential and then play it for the first time like that. But obviously that's not gonna happen. But but yeah, so So yeah, I think some of the other games I thought about, like KOTOR 2, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, Oblivion. Like I feel like I can still play those games again and really love them and enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas Skyrim, I feel like I've kind of lost my any sort of like desire to go back and play that game that I really loved the first time I played it.
Interesting. It's interesting that you guys have all picked open world games.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking of putting a Mario game in there, though, James, to be honest.
I want to offend you.
I don't like you.
I had games like, obviously, same as Evan, like Mass Effect Trilogy was one I was tempted to talk about. Last of Us 2 being a recent one I've played that's literally, again, like one of the best games I've played in my entire life. But again, I just wanted to go with one I feel like that, yeah, Oblivion being an important one, I think, in my gaming journey, being the first proper big open world game I played. I think it was a good shout.
Yeah. It was easy for me. Red Dead Redemption 2 was so easy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was just a story. I just want to relive that story again.
Games that are like fun to play mechanically, I feel like the gameplay is fun. I feel like you can play those again and not play it for like the story, right? But games that like the Elder Scrolls or Red Dead Redemption that are really more so based around like the narrative, the characters, like exploring the world. Like you can only do that stuff once before you know what I mean? Like it kind of loses that initial excitement. Whereas games like Mario and stuff, where it's more about the gameplay and stuff, I feel like those have a little more. I don't know, like playing it the first time isn't necessarily always gonna be like a million times better than each subsequent playthrough.
No, I agree.
Cool. Well, Katie, I know we had some people respond to our tweet about what the game that they would like to forget and replay is. You want to tell us what some of those are?
Yeah. We got a few here. I was actually listing off what one you said, Liam, but I think that was just you replying to somebody else. But first one we've got is actually from an IRL friend of mine, my work colleague, Elliot. Eggle is Smexy. Ignore the name. But he said Fallout 4, and he always goes on about Fallout 4 at work. He just loves going back to that game multiple times, modded, unmodded, exploring it. And he says basically Fallout 4 by far, he's played it several times, but it's never quite matched up to the love he felt for it the first time he played through it. So I guess kind of back to the theme you were kind of saying, Evan, that like he still enjoys it when he does go back to it, but obviously it will never compare to obviously the first time he played it. Fallout 4 is a good shout, though.
Yeah, it's a good shout. Again, I mean, when I replied to that to Eggle Smexy, Eggle Smexy, even sorry, I said that again, Fallout 4 was my first experience, my introduction to Fallout, and I absolutely loved it. I really did. And if it wasn't for Fallout 4, I wouldn't have played any of the other Fallout games that I have so far. Fallout 1, I've briefly gone into New Vegas and 3, and I'm playing 76 now. Yeah. I see Fallout 4 being as a good choice.
Mm-hmm.
I'd play it again.
Definitely.
Yeah. I think I was saying to you guys, Fallout 4 is one of them games that I've really tried to get into, but never really got as far as Diamond City. But there's a VR version, so that might be something that I do get into. But I've heard it's very bad. I've heard it's not as good as the original, but it definitely seems like one of those games that I really do want to get into because I loved all the others. It's just for some reason Fallout 4, just I can't get into it. But I can see why people see. For me, and I get how people love Fallout so much because it is such a great game to get into. Like Fallout 3. I mean, I can see why people have the love for Fallout 4 because I have the exact same love for Fallout 3. And if it's funny because Bethesda, I've actually got a lot of love for Bethesda, to be honest with you. I think they're a fantastic game company, and most of the games that I enjoy have been made by them, and especially Skyrim, Fallout, Wolfenstein. The newer ones made by them, it's definitely a no-brainer that a lot of people are picking Bethesda games to replay again because they're just so well made, and narratives and things like that. So yeah, definitely agree with him.
We got someone else. We got Charlie Amber 94, who said Red Dead Redemption 2. But obviously, no spoilers, as she knows I haven't played it yet. She does know that. And then we got Mike Paul Vox. He said Mass Effect 2, but he agrees with Charlie, Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. And he's like, he's going to just throw every game in there. He'd probably chuck Black Flag in there as well. Assassin's Creed Black Flag. So basically, every one of his favorite games. I want to play it again. I mean, I'm all about that. Mass Effect 2 is a good shout, though. Being my favorite game of all time. And then we got, I think, the last one here, Sean Akin. Much as I want to say Mass Effect, because I know he's a big Mass Effect fan as well, the fact I've racked up close to 20 complete playthroughs by now means I would never revert that progress for anything. So either Fallout 3 or Red Dead Redemption.
I've got a question. Let's say that this could potentially happen. I've got 4 pills, and you could forget your favorite game that you've just spoke about here. Would you actually do it?
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Probably would, yeah.
Yeah.
Like Skyrim isn't like something that I would like if I lost my like memories of playing it, that I would be like devastated. So I feel like
so long as there's not
a weird side effect.
That's what I was just about to say.
You're also going to have insomnia and
night terrors and stuff. Yeah. So long as that was the only side effect I would have, is to forget that one game, I would absolutely do it.
Makes you forget how to play games. Like,
So long as there's something telling me, a note to say you must play this game, and I don't forget that I have to play it again, as well.
Because you could just pick up and be like, nah, I don't want to play it.
What? Why have I got Red Dead Redemption 2? I've not even played Red Dead Redemption 1. Throw it away.
I think it's a prequel, right? So you could almost
you could,
do it that way, right?
I've always been tempted. Like,
Star Wars.
Like, actually, that's a genuine question. Is that a good? Yes, I know. Freaking out what the name was. John Marston's in it. I know, but is it still? Could you probably do it that way if you wanted to? I mean, it would still make sense. Yeah.
I mean, the story would. I would say that it would be such a weird, and not to say Red Dead.
So obviously, the first game would look so good, and then the second one would kind of go back a little bit in terms of.
That's what I was gonna say. I think it holds up okay, but it might be a little jarring to go from. And it is kind of cool, like after playing the first one, to see all the like some of the characters and stuff, and like they like allude to and tell a lot of stories about like characters from Red Dead Redemption 2 and Red Dead Redemption 1. That is a hard game to say.
It's now really hard to say when you're like, oh yeah, like you can go back to the first game, but it's technically the second game.
So I think you could do it either way, and it'd be a different experience, but probably just as fun, in my opinion.
Just for the record, I have actually played Red Dead Redemption 1. I actually played that in preparation for Red Dead Redemption 2 before I found out that Red Dead Redemption 2 was a prequel.
Thing is, though, it's one of those games you could just play Red Dead Redemption 2 without even playing Red Dead 1, right? You could. It's almost like its own
story on its own.
Yeah.
I can't remember if Red Dead Revolver is part of that story or it's completely different.
See, I feel like it is in that universe kind of thing, but I don't think it's
part. I think it like there's some. I know there's like Easter eggs to it in like Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2, but I don't think it's like canonically like part of the story. But I could be wrong.
Because that's a game I can't remember very well at all.
So I keep getting mixed up. I played Call of Juarez, I think, which is probably that game. Probably the similar games, like I would imagine.
Yeah, and Gun.
But it had an alright story.
Okay, yeah.
It's okay.
Red Dead Redemption is not a direct sequel to Red Dead Revolver. Instead, is a loosely based spiritual successor to the previous title.
Okay.
All right, that's all the show we got for you guys today. Appreciated everybody responding to our tweet and telling us the game that they'd like to be able to play again for the first time. If you guys want to be part of the show in the future, be sure to check out our Twitter at XGenPodcast1 and get involved in the show. You can also email in any questions or suggestions for topics at xgenpod@gmail.com. And again, you can get this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google, or YouTube. So on behalf of everybody, appreciate you guys listening, and everybody have a wonderful week.
Bye-bye.
Okay.